Two teachers spring to mind. The first was a 5th grade math teacher. She was unquestionable sexist. She hated every boy in the class and constantly made fun of every single one, while the girls, even the not-so-nice one, were her darlings. The second was a high school Spanish teacher. He was just a bully. Spent most of his days making fun of all the students in his class. At least he was more equal opportunity with his bullying. He was a jackass to everyone, making fun of people's looks, or weight, or intelligence. Was never happier than when I finally got out of his class. It was my geography teacher. Huge Steelers fan. I was a Buccaneers fan. Every time the Bucs win and the Steelers lose, he would take points off my grade. I still remember him giving me a 0 on a test when the Buccaneers beat the Steelers in a regular season game. I looked over the test of my classmate with the same answers and the student got a perfect score. I reported it to the principal, who reminded me that I was in the special education program and it is normal for teachers to lower special ed children's scores in order to keep the college expectations low. 10th grade, hands down. In my second semester of 10th grade, one transferred schools. Second day at my new school, teacher pulls me aside and calls me a poison on her classroom. Everyone to this day says I must have misunderstood what she said, but she was pretty damn clear about it. Mrs. Wingard. She hit me. She hit the other students in her class with a belt to force us to learn multiplication. My chemistry teacher RN is very conservative and I go to a school of mostly pox and he'll say things like gay people don't deserve rights! Exclamation mark. Or he'll show up with stickers from gun rallies. My 7 to 98 grade English teacher. She failed an essay assignment for the whole class claiming most of them had been plagiarized from the internet. Later it turned out none of them were, but we still had to do them all over. She was really unfair to students and pretty bad at teaching too. I had a bad math teacher that failed me and asked me if I really thought I'd pass, and said I should find another study path. I changed schools and graduated in the honors math program. Sorry, it really wasn't me. Nice one. Fuck him. Toss-up between 8th grade science teacher or my sophomore year English teacher. Science teacher had a really bad anger issue. If she felt you disrespected her in any way, and her definition for that was very broad, she would flip the fuck out. Red in the face, bulging forehead vein, eyes popping out, screaming at the top of her lungs, rage. Getting on her bad side was equal parts terrifying, embarrassing, degrading, and easy. The other just loved to lob accusations of plagiarism everywhere, which can get you in serious shit. But she constantly told students what they wrote sounded too smart for them and said they clearly plagiarized. I got hit with it and I knew damn well I never read anything akin to what I wrote. I bullshit my essays, I don't research better ones to copy. Plus, she accused several students I knew were just hardworking or intelligent. Math teacher in middle school. She was strict, too serious, and always angry. She once ripped my math notebook in half because I didn't write my numbers in straight, perfect line and because my 7 didn't look right to her. She would yell at you if you had even the smallest problem with your equation. To be honest, all of my math teachers were awful. The only good one I had was for 6 months in weekend school. He was so good. But he was only a temporary replacement and that school stopped existing after a while. Oh, and also my English teacher in elementary school. I hated this language with passion as a kid because the teacher was just a bitch. Like, I started to have problems with my sight at that time and was unlucky enough to sit right in the back of the class. I couldn't see shit. My notes were always empty and no one wanted to help me. When I asked if I can sit closer to the whiteboard, she yelled at me and refused to change my seat. I have a few that top the list, but my most hated is my second grade teacher. My mom wanted me in her class cause she was supposed to be the best, but instead, she decided not to believe I have autism. So what does she do? Make an example out of me. Because my penmanship was bad, she would make me redo our morning spelling, and miss snack time would not allow me to go use the restroom, accused me of killing a cocoon caterpillar when we had that class thing and we all had separate jar cup things. And other things I don't recall because most everything is repressed or forgotten. Because of what she did, I was relentlessly bullied by this one kid up through half of 5th grade. My 5th grade teacher was such a bitch I switched schools, but I was given the suspended kid's desk. Who I thought was my friend in that class turned on me, and I had 0 friends just cause I had the suspended kid's desk. Needless to say, I was in a different school after that. But there was always a bully to be found there too. I had a behavioral instructor who was great at first. Then she got married and turned into queen bitch and tortured all of us, which was me and 2 younger boys who were worse off than me. Between her and my daily bullies, there was just no end to it. Then we moved. New state, new town, new school, new bullies. I even had a friend turn on me sometime later in high school, never spoke to him again. All the bullying and asshole teachers finally stopped when I went to college. Save for one professor who got on my bad side, but that was it. It had finally ended. To this day I still have no idea why I was so relentlessly picked on. What made me such a perfect target? What did I do to deserve any of it? I'll probably never learn those answers. All I can hope for is that those who treated me like shit are eating it, alive or dead. Had it not been for her, had I maybe been switched, I'd probably be a stronger person in every sense of the word. I've had the same experiences. Teachers picking on me because I didn't understand the language or how to read the language. Not nice people, but that's all behind me now. I had a couple. They didn't care about the students and didn't respect their jobs. All they wanted to do was to sit through the classes and leave as soon as the bell rang. They were no different than us in terms of reluctancy and indifference. They didn't even try. They would make us memorize pieces of useless information that had no depth, and they would make us grow sick of the field by doing so. Turns out those fields are really entertaining, applicable to everyday life and intellectually stimulating. But the way I was coldly introduced to them made me hate these fields. My teachers would mock me when I told them about my dreams and would belittle me and my friends for the smallest things. It was not what I would remotely call an education. It was in fact an inoculation of ideas that were deemed right by a bunch of people. Wasn't any different than our mental hospital, to be honest. Sorry for going a little off, but yeah, high school is not my fondest memory. I wish to write good things about my college professors in another post though. Math teacher that failed all boys while even the blonde I barely know how to do addition girls got a B or higher. Offhand, in grade school, my 9th grade biology teacher. The most innocuous thing she did was to tell increasingly bizarre stories in an intended to be Socratic attempt to explain human body functions. A genuine example: my husband has tied an anchor to the bottom of my raft to prevent me from leaving the pool. How can he get my pina colada to me anyway? The worst thing, on the other hand, was failing me on a science exam that I knew I hadn't failed. We ended up in a screaming match for 10 minutes. After class, because I asked her if she could check my test again, and she took that as an insult to her and her teaching. Ended up she had marked the wrong responses for the Scantron machine. Everyone's test score was too low by at least 20 points. She really had it in for after that for the rest of the year, I guess because I unintentionally embarrassed her even though no one else was in the room when I asked her to recheck my test. My 2nd grade teacher. She did one thing that made me want to switch classes. She cursed at me and my friend for being friends. I hated her. My mom told the principal to switch and told her about the cursing. She didn't care. We were in middle school and this teacher was chaperoning a school trip. We were very many people in many different groups and the organization wasn't very good, so when we had to go back we ended up in a situation in which there were 5 or 6 kids who didn't fit in a bus. She left them there on their own and left with everyone else. I still don't know why the parents didn't press charges. Who? My GCSE sports studies teacher. He is so self-absorbed as a man and he's exactly the type of guy to belittle you if weren't popular. Cliche. Sometimes he was nice, but no. Also, he was a cyclist and competed nationally until he had a tragic accident back in the early 2000s. Why? Throughout year 10, 9th grade, I was having a really bad time with depression, being alone despite having friends and BPD, which I didn't know about at the time. I kept missing his lessons and then he knew about the problems I was having. Then for months he never helped at all and sometimes joked at the point I was on the verge of tears. I think 2, 3, maybe 4 times. Thus I kept ducking his lessons and I didn't care. I also complained to his wife, who was my English teacher, and it didn't go so well for him. He apologized in a not so meaningful way and I didn't forgive him. Year 11 was a better year, still had him as a teacher, but I never said anything to him nor vice versa. Just carried on until it was over. I hated him still and I am sure he knew that. I was predicted an A*. Got a C grade, and the look on his face was absolutely worth it on results day. I had a chemistry teacher in high school that failed me for a B.S. reason. We had a long assignment of balancing 150 chemical equations. A friend and I worked together on the assignment. We didn't each do half, we worked on every one together, so we turned in the same answers in the same font, same formatting, etc. She failed me for cheating and the principal could overturn my grade even though she took my side. I was able to take the summer school test and get a 70, but because of that 170 I did not even make honor roll for school, when without that one grade 1 would have likely been valedictorian at my school.